This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hello and welcome to Daughterhood The Podcast. I am your host, Rosanne Corcoran, Daughterhood Circle Leader and Primary Caregiver. Daughterhood is the creation of Ann Tumlinson, who has worked on the front lines in the healthcare field for many years and has seen the multitude of challenges caregivers face. Our mission is to support and build confidence in women who are managing their parents' care. Daughterhood is what happens when we put our lives on hold to take care of our parents. We recognize this care is too much for one person to handle alone. We want to help you see your efforts are not only good enough, they are actually heroic. Our podcast goal is to bring you some insight into navigating the healthcare system, provide resources for you as a caregiver as well as for you as a person, and help you know that you don't have to endure this on your own. Join me in Daughterhood. In 2016, Kitty Norton left her job as an NBC assistant editor in Los Angeles, California, for her hometown of Portland, Oregon, to care for her mother living with dementia. While she was caring, Kitty authored the dementia caregiver blog, Stumptown Dementia, writing tales of dementia life, not dementia death, which resonated deeply with readers around the world. After her mother's death in 2021, Kitty took to the road in an RV to produce and direct her cross-country documentary film, Wine, Women, and Dementia. This film honors the journey with her mother, as well as spreads awareness of the caregiving side of the equation in dementia. It celebrates family caregivers and lets them know they are not alone and that they are worthy of being seen, heard, and celebrated alongside who they are caring for on this difficult road to the end of life. In this episode, we discuss common tropes and platitudes most often heard in dementia, the reality behind them, and how Kitty's caregiving journey led her to create her film. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Kitty, you and I were on this dementia caregiving journey together. When we were in the throes of it, we emailed, texted, and talked to each other. And these were some of the things that used to really bug us. These common dementia tropes, cliches, if you will, and the harm and misinformation they can cause.
I am so looking forward to this hour because I'm so ready to rant and rave because these things are still driving me crazy. I thought, Rosanne, you and I both don't ever want to pass judgment. We know that this is a rough journey and whatever's helping you, keep doing it. But I did think we should give a little bit of a disclaimer. These were a lot of the tropes and the platitudes that I got starting in 2016 from doctors, social media, well-meaning friends, and almost all of them, to me, align with that pervasive tragedy narrative. Mm-hmm. And it was exhausting to try and figure out in my journey why, sure, we were having tragedy, but that wasn't the only experience we were having. That wasn't the only emotion. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not as upset as everybody else is with all these pithy sayings? So I just wanted to say it worked against my mom and I, but if it works for you, you keep it up. But we're taking the hour to bust these things down. And if you want to think a little bit differently about them, we're your girls.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And you're right.
What's on deck? What's our first one?
Our first one, I think, is the one that makes you the most angry, which is if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia.
Oh boy, we're starting out with all the fireworks today, aren't we?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, did this one drive you nuts? Because it still makes me crazy.
I saw it both. I saw it two different ways. So you first.
All right. So this one for me also has its evil sister. Well, everybody's different in dementia. Those two came together all the time. And I mostly got them from like medical professionals. And I was trying to get some answers. And instead I'd get back this, well, if you've met one dementia person, you've met one dementia person.
Which absolves them from trying to help you. Like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about it. It's like, okay, you don't have any answers. So you're giving me this bull crap. And I'm supposed to just be like, oh, okay, well, there's nothing that can be done.
Right.
And it made me absolutely crazy. The further I got into this journey with mom, I was like, wait a minute, that's not true. All people living with dementia are going to go through sundowners. Okay. So there's something that's very common.
Right.
A lot of people are going to go through their rage stage. I thought we were going to skip that. Turns out we weren't. So there's something that you can kind of, when a caregiver comes to you with a problem, you can say, this may be a little bit of that crazy rage that sometimes comes with the different types of dementia. It was like over and over again. Incontinence. Everybody's going to be incontinent. If I come to you not understanding what to do, that mom's throwing poop around the house, you can tell me that other people are having these same issues.
Yeah.
It
only leads to your isolation.
Yeah. That's how I felt. So it still drives me nuts. It still drives me crazy. And when in fact, I was on a panel a couple of months ago where someone in the community who provides a lot of resources said that, and I just had to bite my tongue because I just wanted to reach over and smack her upside the head. Like, no, not on my watch, lady. You don't get to say that.
What did you do? Did you just...
Well, I can't remember. She had said something about 5 minutes earlier that I also got on her about. So I finally said, you know what? Okay, just let this one go. Now you're just losing your mind and you look like a crazy person.
Right. Well, yeah. And, knowing those things and knowing the food issues that come and all of that is more helpful than simply throwing up your hands and being like, that's it. Everybody's different.
Right. Yeah. And I would have been so appreciative if they'd have said, you know what? I don't know.
Yes.
But here's some ideas of places that might know. Yes. Here's some groups you might want to join and ask them about this. Or here's somebody in my office who's going through this also, and they can help you. Yep. But no, it was just, well, every dementia person's different, and slam the door.
Yeah. You can make a left the exit sign and check out.
Exactly. And a couple years later, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Not all of this is different.
No.
So what's one of your biggies? We started out with one of mine.
One of my biggies is it's just like having a child.
Oh, yeah.
It makes me redline because it's not just like having a child on many levels. And I understand that people want something that they can identify with. They want to have something that they can say, okay, it's like this and I've done this. So I understand what you're feeling.
Yeah, I get that.
I get that. That's, it's very common. But for me, I never saw my mother as my child. She's my mother. And she's an adult. And when people say, well, you do what you do when kids take a nap, you go take a nap. And it's like, no, this is a fully grown person who is not in a crib. She's fully grown. She can walk around. It doesn't matter if she naps. I can't nap if she gets up. Like it's those types of things. And it's the parenting your parent, which, is the sister of it's just like having a child. I always found that to be disrespectful. And again, I understand why people say it because it's that connection, but it's your parent.
Right.
It never sat right with me. And, with children are growing and they're learning and they're moving forward. And when we're caring for our parents, they're losing skills. They're losing these things. So it was never on the same playing field for me.
I agree. I will have to confess, I did use it sometimes, but I would say it as, this is the closest I can get you in just a few minutes.
Gotcha.
It's a lot like raising a child, except your child isn't learning new things and isn't going on to bigger, better things.
Right.
This person is actually losing things and moving towards the end of their life.
Right.
But you're right. They're not kids, and that used to frustrate me too. It's like, you can't simplify it that much, because my mom is an adult and her brain has a disease, and the disease isn't turning her back into a child.
Right.
But the disease is doing things in her head that makes her seem more childlike.
That's good.
But again, she's not 2.
Right.
She's 81.
Well, exactly. And it also, that narrative, that cliche, makes you miss what is still there. Because while they're losing things, they're still retaining their intuition. And if you're just going to put them in a bucket of, well, they're just losing all their skills. No. They're not losing all their skills. They're losing the practical things, but their intuition is still there. And how you interact with them is still there.
Yeah.
So I think it always comes back to, it's not that easy to just say, well, that's what dementia is. It's not that easy. You can't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing. That's why they're called tropes and platitudes, because they make something seem all one thing.
Right.
And that's not what this is.
No.
It's very complex. If you want a little trope just to give you a quick explanation, fine, but don't leave it at that.
Right.
Right.
Because it's so much more than that. And it makes it seem simple, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
And why didn't we ever get to talk about the things that mom gained?
I know.
Sure, she forgot my name, but holy God, she developed a love for peanut butter.
Right.
And her throwing arm, as she threw garbage out the door instead of in the garbage can, got so much better. We used to look at the banana peels and how far out they got into the yard, and we're like, wow, she's really picking up some skills there.
Oh, I think your other one is, and I know we've talked about this, you do not like the long goodbye.
Oh, yeah, I think for both of us, isn't that a hackle raiser?
Yeah.
And part of this, I think for me, stems from the fact that I lost my dad so fast.
Yep.
We went from the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer to death in 3 weeks. So I've been through the short goodbye, and it sucks. And as far as calling it the long goodbye, that just seems like, everything is lost.
Yes.
Instead of, okay, it took mom a long time from her diagnosis to get to when dementia actually killed her, but that wasn't a goodbye to me. That was a, wow, I finally get to be the daughter I should have been my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also, hello, new parts of mom.
Right.
And I thought I think the long goodbye really just puts you dead center in that tragedy narrative, instead of being like, thinking about things a little differently. Like, my mom was quite timid her whole life. Her and my dad had a very traditional marriage. He was the man, she was the woman. She was quite a beautiful woman, and so was your mom. And she was extremely uncomfortable with the amount of attention that garnered her for most of her life. So she, except for her family, she was kind of a wallflower. Well, during this long quote unquote goodbye, mom came out of her shell. She did not have inhibitions anymore that stopped her from walking up to a tall, handsome stranger in the grocery store and touching him on the arm and smiling up at him. There were so many ways that mom kind of blossomed into someone she had not been her entire life. And to go with the long goodbye, oh my gosh, we're saying goodbye to everything about the woman we knew. It's like, come on,
Yeah. You miss it.
Yeah. Yes. If you're going to sit in that headspace,
You're going
to miss some really cool stuff.
Right. Because they're still there. And I'm with you, fully with you. My father, same. We've talked about this, pancreatic cancer, 2 weeks from you have it to you're dead. And that is such a shocking, talk about no preparation and no anything. I mean, it's completely overwhelming. And, to look at this, because people think you get, it's the long goodbye. And then there's that people think you get diagnosed and then they're dead. And it's not, it's not that way.
You will not be so lucky.
it doesn't happen that way. And all of those things, the moments that I had with my mother were precious. And of course, I felt awful for how her life changed. But having her with me and being able to see her every day, it was joyful for me. It wasn't so joyful when I wasn't sleeping and she was up for 24 hours. And okay, I mean, I'm not sugarcoating this. This is not a sugarcoat. But it's to say there were parts that were wonderful. And when you get caught in that vortex of sadness, you're not seeing it, you're not experiencing it. And that's the part where you have to be really careful of what you take in and what you accept.
Right. Accept as truth, and that's what I think this was one of the very first ones where I finally rejected it. I'm like, look, this is not doing me any good. It's not doing mom any good. Now I'm just feeling like I should be morose,
Right.
every single day, every single minute. It's like, okay, mom finally got what she wanted, her 2 daughters with her every week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. Goodbye is goodbye. When she takes her last breath,
That's goodbye.
that's goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, the end of life journey has a lot of life, and not all of it you're going to enjoy.
Mm-mm.
Most of it you're not, but it's going to be there.
Right.
I think this was one of the very first ones where I was finally like, I can't, I don't want to hear this anymore. I don't want to see it on social media. This just seems preposterous to me. If this helps you, great. Please don't put it in my face again. I can't go there.
Right. Because living in that space is harder. It's harder to live in that space every day. If you're getting up and thinking, oh, it's just another day and it's just one day closer until she dies. That is a hard space to be in on the daily,
I guess I won't put on my tiara today.
Well, it's just hard. I mean, that end of life is hard enough when you're actually like death is down the street and making its way. That's hard. You don't want to be there any sooner than you need to be. You want,
especially, for us, maybe some people do, and maybe that helps you. Great.
Right.
But yeah.
And I think it's an acceptance thing, don't you? Where it's like, okay, this is the disease. This disease is going to kill them. There are going to be changes through this disease. Accepting that, because sometimes we rail against that. Well, there's got to be something I have to do. There has to be something that I can do to fix this.
Especially in the beginning. I think that's pretty common for most of us in the beginning.
Yes. It's that railing that makes it difficult.
Right.
And not saying that you don't. Of course you're gonna want to do everything that you can, but there has to come that point where you go, okay, this is what it is, and I have to figure out how to live through this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it in that way, that it's a part of acceptance. My dad, it took him so long to accept the diagnosis. Like, he really struggled with this. He looked for every other possibility, and that was so stressful for him. And during that time, my mom, who still I don't believe had really accepted it for herself, really felt like she couldn't accept it. Really felt like she had to hide it because she could see how stressed it was making my father.
Right.
There was a really funny little exchange between one of my mom's friends and me, probably about the year after dad died. And this was, she had a group of 2 of her quilting friends that she went walking with every Tuesday and Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had kept that going up until he died. So my sister and I, of course, we'd take her to the mall every Tuesday and Thursday, and she'd walk with her friends and they'd bring her back home. And one of her friends actually said to me, "You girls have made such a difference in her life because she's happier now. She seems less guarded." And, it's dementia. You don't know if that's just the disease moving a little further ahead, or if it really was being out from under the stress of my father's anxiety over it and her stress trying to meet his trying to keep his anxiety down. Maybe that was a part of it. Maybe it was both. But I just found that really funny, and it's kind of hard, like, well, thank you for saying that after my dad died, things got so much better. And I know she didn't mean it like that.
No,
I know she
no.
meant to really say, you girls are doing something your father couldn't do for your mom.
Right.
And maybe it was something in their relationship, the way they ran it, that just couldn't allow that to happen anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
The other one is, well, it's just memory loss. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
how hard is that? It's just, they just, where are my keys? And I forgot what I was doing and that type of thing. And it's like, it's not.
And I have to tell you, Roseanne, were you ever stuck in that? Because I was stuck in that for a while.
In what?
In thinking the same thing. Oh, it's just memory loss.
No.
No?
No. Well, I have, my mom's siblings, and I had seen this film before, and I did the ending. Yeah. So I was already pretty well primed.
Yeah, I definitely got rid of it, but yeah, that I got stuck there for a while, and I think one of the first things that kind of had me rethinking that was mom couldn't point her foot anymore. And this seems like a really silly thing to kind of give you an epiphany. But do you know how hard it is to help somebody put on their shoes and socks when they can't point their foot?
I would think very difficult.
When you've got a foot that's like, as it's stepping, you
Right.
can't maneuver a sock around, you can't get a shoe. And that was the first thing where I was kinda like, "Okay, it's not that she's forgotten how, it's that her brain isn't making those connections anymore." She might be sitting on top of her bed in her head going, "Point, point, point."
Right. But it's just not.
But, yeah, it's not coming down the pipeline.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that was like a weird epiphany to me. I remember I know it was weird because I told my sister about it, I'm like, "Have you noticed mom can't point her feet anymore?" And she's like, "Why do you talk about these things?"
That's
What
such
is
an
wrong
odd
with
thing to say.
you?
What are you talking about? Can't we just have a regular conversation? Yeah. No, you know what? Now that you say that, I take it back. Now that you say that, we would be driving in the car and my mother would say, "Oh, I know him." And I'd be like, "What? What do you, oh yeah, no, I know him." And I'd be like, "What are you saying?" And I remember thinking, well, what category does this fall in? Like, what is this? Is this,
And she didn't know him then.
didn't know him? No,
Okay.
no,
Just
we would,
some random dude on the street.
dude that was driving next to us in the car, or we would go to the grocery store and she'd be like, "Oh, he was here last week." And I'd be like, "Okay, maybe he was. I don't know." But it was those types of things. And it was those types of things that fully ignited my hair on fire, fully. Because then I was like, wait a minute. Because while I had witnessed other dementia happenings, they weren't that. So then,
Yeah.
like, well, what is this then? So then, am I on the right track? Am I on the wrong track? What is happening? What's next? How do I support this? Like, it was all
Yeah.
that was going through my head because it was just like, wait, what? So,
Do we need to go say hello? I don't know what to do at this point.
well, yeah, I'd be looking at the person in the grocery store like, well, I don't know. Maybe she knew them when she was younger, or maybe how many people do you see that you went to grade school with or whatever? If this was a grade school person, I'd have no idea if who that person
Yeah.
was.
I would have probably paraded mom a little bit closer to the person and see if they said, "Oh, hello, Gloria."
Well, no, because she would go up to them and be like, "Hey, how are you? How you doing?" And they'd be like, "What? Who's this person?" You know, most of the people are very open when they see my mother because they were just like, "Oh, hi." Like, okay. But you get people that are working there that are like, "Lady, I got things to do here."
I don't know, Roseanne, that was all of mom's dementia career. She just started going up to everybody. But that's a really good example. That's way better than my foot thing, to let people understand that this is gonna be a lot more.
Yeah.
Sure, there's memory loss, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to this, and there's just these random things that you don't think about, like all of a sudden your person may just be recognizing a bunch of strangers.
Hmm. Or think they know them and they don't know.
Right.
And those are the things. And that's where it's a disservice when there is this like, wow, it's just, they can't find their keys. No, it's a disservice because there's more to this. There's the, buying the same things at the grocery store. There's sleeping late or sleeping less or not being social and that kind of thing. And I was looking for pictures the other day, and I came upon a picture of my mother's refrigerator.
Oh,
because I had taken a picture of it because it was water, a Brita pitcher, coffee mate, a dozen eggs, 4 bottles, 4-pack of champagne, and ketchup.
I love her.
Yep, and ketchup. And that was it in the refrigerator. That was it.
Wow.
Oh, did you eat? Yeah, I had eggs. Okay, there's still 12 in the carton. Ma, what did you have for lunch? Oh, I had whatever. She would say something. I'd be like, she didn't eat anything. It's those types of things that you have to observe.
Right.
That if you just thought, oh, well, it's fine. She's remembering where her keys are. She's remembering, whatever, where to get her mail, whatever. You miss it. And that's the disservice. There's more to this.
Yes, there definitely is. And this leads me to one that I'm not sure this is on our list, but this one also really, really gets me, is I would always be asked, I think this is still very common. I would always be asked, does she remember who you are? And I see people on social media like, oh, today's the day my person forgot me. And I'll admit, the first maybe 2 or 3 times that happened, that was a huge gut punch.
Oh, it's awful.
But eventually it's like, you know what? There's a lot worse coming. If mom doesn't remember my name, if she doesn't remember how we're related, who cares? It's not her job to remember me anymore. It's my job to remember who she was, to celebrate who she is, and to embrace what's coming.
Yes.
It's like this crap about her not remembering who I am. Who cares?
Right.
That's not on her anymore.
No.
That used to drive me nuts too.
Well, because it's almost like that's the tragedy.
I know. I know.
Right?
It's like, oh, apparently mom's life was only valid when she knew who I was.
Exactly. Right. And it's she may not know who you are, but man, when she smiles when you come in the door, that's all you need.
Right.
And again, it goes to the deeper thing. This is a progressive neurological fatal disease. These are the things that happen. It's beyond what we think, right? It's beyond what we think is going on. And we have to realize that and be like, okay, this is the next step. I'm not saying it does not hurt. I'm not saying that it doesn't make you, leave the room and be like, oh my goodness, my mother doesn't know who I am anymore. I'm not saying that's not heartbreaking. It is. But in the big scheme of things, this is what it is on this journey.
Right.
And be prepared for that and know that that's coming. And you're still providing something, even though they don't know you. You're still providing that security and that comfort.
And man, let it hurt, man, because that does hurt.
Yeah.
Just don't stay there.
Right.
It's gonna knock you out of the running.
Yep.
If you're trying to be there and support your person, whether they're long distance, whether you live with them 24/7, whether they're in, you're their advocate in a facility, get out of that headspace because there's worse coming. That's the one thing about dementia. Whatever you think is terrible today, it's going to be a walk in the park next month.
Yes.
Shit's about to get really bad.
Well, which brings me to the next one, which is you think that every stage is the end stage.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
You can't get worse than this. I mean, doesn't want to eat. We're having UTIs every other day, whatever. You think this is it. This is the end stage. And it's like, it's not the end stage.
I felt for that so many times. And I think it was the hospice people finally, after like the third time, I'm like, you guys need to come and evaluate her. I think we're 6 months from the end. They'd be like, sweetie, there's a lot more life left here. Why don't you give it a year or two? Give us a call.
Yeah. But you're in such a panic. You're in such a panic, and no one of course there are those charts, the charts, and then it's like 1 to 7, and then there's like, but wait, there's sub ones, there's A, B, C, and D, like, and you're looking at this and you're like, well, but she's got some of 3 and some of 7. So what does that is this an average?
Right.
Averaging? What are we doing?
Well, every dementia person's different, so we can't answer that question for you. Oh, thank you.
Want more Daughterhood? We are more than the podcast. We are a community that offers free, nationwide, virtual support groups we call circles. These circles allow you to connect, learn, and support one another through your caregiving journey. You can find more information at daughterhood.org, where you can register for a circle, sign up for our newsletter, and find other resources for additional support. Remember to also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Daughterhood.
But that's really true and I think this especially came into play for me looking at the charts and trying to figure out things when I would have to look at the financials every year. It's like, where are we? I mean, I don't want to have to do the math for my mother's death, but I need to be very, very careful that we don't run out of money because my sister and I were in no way able to, help my mom. We had to make her money last to help her. So, yeah, that always trying to gauge where things are. And sometimes I would be gauging where things are because it would have been like a terrible week or a terrible month. And it would be literally, when am I going to be out of this?
Right.
I'm here for the long haul. But I tell you, if she dies tonight, I would be relieved, and those are hard feelings to acknowledge and go, okay, sit there for a little bit and then let that go and let's get back to work.
Right. Right. But that's what you have to do, because all of this, and I think that's the most important thing, is this is that, the end is the end. And you've got to go through all of this to get to the end. And along the way, you have to allow yourself, and it's allowing yourself to think these things, to sit with them and to let them go and get back to work.
Yeah.
That if you're going to be a dementia caregiver, that's all part of it. And it's the hardest part, because there are days you're just like, I just want to get in my car and I'm just going to drive. And I'll turn around, maybe, or I'll
maybe.
But those are those things that you think, I mean,
or maybe McDonald's drive-thrus for the next 4 states.
That's it. I mean, it's just, it's hard, those times when you pull back up and you're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And it's always, for me, it was always, I'm going to see this through to the end. It might kill me. It nearly did.
Yeah.
But I'm going to see this through to the end. But how am I going to do this? How am I going to go through each of these stages and still be on my feet? And that's the part that everybody misses, because everybody thinks it's just memory loss, and it's just, it's just like having a child. You just put them in.
How hard is that?
How hard is that?
Well, you just have to find the keys, right?
Right. And that's the thing. It reminded me of I've never seen it, but the Notebook, and when the wife, all of a sudden is like talking to the husband, and then we all expect that. We expect that before they die, we're going to have this conversation with them.
Yeah.
Where everything is clear and everything is resolved. And we expect that. And then when it doesn't happen, we're left with, well, did we do something wrong? Or it didn't happen the way it was supposed to happen. And I feel like that adds to our own grief and our own, I don't know, feelings of what did we not do?
Yeah. I've never seen that film either, but I do see on the Facebook groups and the forums a lot. It's like, wow, this sure isn't like The Notebook.
Right.
So
yeah.
I've never watched it thinking, well, I'm probably not going to get any tips from that. Apparently it's nice and a good cry, but not really very informative.
Right. It's not real life. And those things, they do happen. Like, honest, like, you know, and I know you've experienced it. I know I've experienced it, where those things do happen, where all of a sudden my mother was like, hey, and it was like, oh my goodness, she's right there.
I would say mom showed up for every day of her dementia journey. Not necessarily the mom I knew or the mom I liked,
Right.
but Gloria Norton was there.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's funny that you mentioned that because I'd kind of forgotten about this. I think I wrote about it in one of my blog posts. It was the month before mom died. And what took mom down was a fall, and she broke her hip. But I think it was like a week or two before that. We were sitting on the sofa and she said my name.
Oh, wow.
Not to me, and not really in any conversational way. She just said it.
Wow.
And then later on, a few days later, she said Lexi's name, my sister.
Wow.
So, you know, that was like, who am I to say my mom's not there anymore? You
Right.
know?
Right.
And then she was dead within the next 4 weeks. So that's really close to the end of the life. And she still pulled those two things out of somewhere
Yep.
for some reason. She
Right.
didn't seem to be mad. She didn't say it like when I was a kid. Done. Ooh, what do I do now? Hide in the closet.
Right.
But it certainly wasn't a conversation. And she didn't tell me anything about a safe in the backyard that now I'm going to go dig up just in case there's one out there.
Well, we had that, you know, I think my mother had a stroke 2 months before she passed. And she lost the ability to speak. But I felt like her dementia changed. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
In what ways?
In clarity. It was
Like
very,
she had more
yeah,
clarity?
it
Wow.
was, it was really weird. And I don't know if it's possible. I don't know. I don't know. But it was really strange. It was welcomed, but it was just, I was like, I don't know what I'm seeing, but like dementia caregiving, you go, I don't know what I'm seeing, but I'm going to go with it. Right?
Yep,
Okay.
this is the road we're taking now.
Okay, we're making a hard left. Okay, we're making a hard left. And that's what I did. But it was very fascinating to me, and I don't quite understand it. But you just go with it, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's
You
very
just,
cool. Yeah, I felt like it was a gift to me to hear my name again. It'd been a long time.
totally, totally, yeah,
It was really
totally.
nice.
Um, which is the opposite of this one, which is suffering with dementia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think you can suffer with dementia. I think even dementia people are changing that narrative. You know, when I first started in 2016, I started following a few there. I think there was 3 people on Twitter, I believe, that I followed that were living with dementia and writing about it and posting about it and blogging about it. And I thought that was really cool. And that for me, that was incredibly informative. You know, it's like, oh, okay, here's somebody actually, you know, in the war zone. What kind of information can I get from them that can help me kind of understand my mom more? Um, yeah, I feel like that's one that's definitely fallen by the wayside, and more and more baby boomers find themselves in this situation, either as caregivers or people living with dementia. You know, they're baby boomers. They're not putting up with this crap. They never have. As soon as something affects them, it's all going to change for everybody. And the
Yeah,
millennials too. You know, the millennials, the Gen Zs, we love to get after them because they never shut up about anything, but, you know, they're not shutting up about dementia, and that's a great thing. They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, there's so much more information, and we're, what, 8 years away from when I first started this journey? I would have killed for any of that in the
yeah,
beginning. Instead,
yeah.
I was, you know, reading books like The 36-Hour
Oh,
Caregiver, which incredibly informative, you guys. So incredibly dry. I don't know how anybody gets through it, you know?
I remember sitting in my closet reading that book, and I thought, well, I don't like any of this.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Oh,
I appreciate the work that was put into it. I
right.
appreciate the information that is in there, but boy, oh boy, I was like, yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't like this.
But yeah, and then I remember even some of the films that I found. There's an HBO series that was helpful in a lot of ways. I think it was done in conjunction with Maria Shriver, but it was also just all of the horror. I remember very vividly a woman in a wheelchair in a memory care facility who always thought there were snakes in her wheelchair.
Oh gosh.
And these things happen,
Yeah.
but when you've watched like a 6-hour series and it's all that stuff,
Mm.
it's all some husband hitting his wife on the head just because he has dementia. He doesn't know his own strength anymore. And he's like, you would tap a kid to say, hey, stop kicking me in the
Chins.
shin. And he just hit her. It's just like I needed I needed some hope, and I needed something to more reflect our journey where, yeah, it's hard, but it wasn't continually delusions and violence.
I think to make a point, they show that. Like, well, this is what happens, and this is where you're going to wind up, and these are all the horrible things, so that people understand that it's something, so we can get funding for research, so we can
Yeah. I
change.
think, and I don't know this true to be true, but I would look at absolutely no balance in the media, in the books, in the news articles. And I was like, this helps them raise money, but it doesn't help those of us who dementia is not a normal part of aging. But when you're in this life, whether you're somebody living with it or somebody helping somebody live with it, you need to find the normalcy.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help at all. You're going to be one of those people who's like, this is just too hard for me. And who cares? They don't remember me anyway. I'm just going to bow out. They won't even know I'm here or I'm not here. And I think that is definitely changed. People are showing the balance. People are showing themselves out with their dementia person, and they're at the market, and dad's gone and done something goofy, but nobody cared. Nobody like threw a fit. Getting over that stigma and that embarrassment with my mom happened pretty fast for me. I'm not sure. I may have been one of the faster ones to just like drop that altogether. But yeah, that's not having anybody see that there's a balance, that this is terribly difficult, but it's not terribly difficult every minute of the day for the next decade.
Correct.
Okay, can I get to one of my other pet peeves?
Oh yeah, sure.
I still see this one every once in a while, and I still push back when I see it on social media. It's a quote from a woman, I believe, who wrote a book about caregiving
Okay.
after she had gone through it. And the quote is, "The hardest thing you will ever have to do, my dear, is grieve the loss of a person who is still alive." I'm like, really? That's the hardest thing? I would change one word in that to say, the hardest thing you will ever have to do is celebrate the loss of somebody you knew and accept somebody who's coming who is still alive. Give that a shot. Give celebrating that person every day a shot, because that's the hard stuff.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
Yeah. You're ducking dishes because your mom's pissed. You learn to celebrate that. Again, her throwing arm had gotten so much better. What do you do?
I think your aim got better too. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, because they are still people.
Exactly.
Gosh, let's say that again.
Uh, the hardest thing you will ever have to do is celebrate the loss of a person who is still alive, who is not the same person that you knew, but you need to celebrate and get ready for who's coming and be happy to see them too.
Amen.
Not every day,
Not every day.
because not every day are they going to be somebody you want to live with. Be happy for that person and the journey that you guys are going through.
Yeah.
There's your challenge.
That is a challenge. And it's very clear to me why you made your movie.
Yeah.
Now, I will say,
It wasn't always clear to me when I started it.
well, so uh, for those of you who don't know, Kitty created, produced, and directed a movie called Wine, Women, and Dementia. I am very pleased and honored to be a part of that. And
I'm lucky to have you in it.
thank you. It was a journey of your heart, a journey of blood, sweat, and tears. And I think
still is.
still is. It is. Why did you want to make it? Why did you feel compelled to say, I'm going to make this movie after your mother dies and you pack up yourself and Beth and jump in an RV and drive around the country? Why?
I'm not sure I can pinpoint just one single reason. I know the idea started before I even started to think about making a movie, and that was that I had written the blog, Stumptown Dementia, and I had made such great friends of caregivers around the world, and 5 of you in the US. Even before mom died, when we knew we were getting there, I thought, you know what? When she's gone, I just want to get in a car and drive away. I need to be out of this house for a while. And I want to go meet Rosanne. I want to go meet Grace. I want to go meet Veronica. And I want to go meet Matt and Lindsay and just thank them for being there for me. So that was kind of how it started. And then I thought, well, these conversations that we're going to have may be very helpful for other caregivers, because I already knew that we all were kind of on the same page about this journey. We all were using humor to help us get through the really rough stuff. So I knew we were going to have fun just opening a bottle of wine and talking nonstop, which is what happened at every single household. And from there, I thought, we think differently about this journey than I've seen related in any other media. And I think that's important to get out there. Not everybody's going to go through this like we did, but they may be able to watch a film that is showing a very different side of the dementia lifestyle and say to themselves, I can take that and incorporate it into my journey. I can take that and incorporate it into my journey. And this might make my time with my person better, easier, doable. So, and I wanted to celebrate caregivers. I was watching so much of the media and reading so many of the books that just ignored us. We weren't asked questions. It was all through the person living with dementia's point of view. And those are incredibly important stories, but we weren't represented. And that's been the coolest thing, having the screenings where I get to go in person or the virtual screenings, and then we have conversations afterwards, is I'm watching caregivers for the very first time see themselves on screen. They aren't the people up there, but it's their stories. And they're like, wow, that happened to us. Wow, I felt that same way. Wow, this is I that could verbatim have been my night last night. And it's making a difference.
Yes.
So when I try and think about why I made this movie, some of it's now tainted with seeing other people's reactions. It's like, oh, that's why I made this movie, even though that had nothing to do with it. That's more just the outcome. It's not for everybody. I've had people push back, like, too many naughty words. And I don't like some of that humor. I think that was disrespectful. I'm like, God love you. You feel this is a tough journey. You get through it how you can get through it.
Right.
But the majority of it has been, thank you. I can't get through this another day without somebody showing me what community can do, support can do, finding your people can do, and running with it.
It really does show the importance of community. And I've been fortunate enough to be at a few screenings, and the response is it's breathtaking to me. It's really just, because they're, like you said, you're seen. We're not seen. We're like the other. I feel like the other box. We're just not seen. We're not part of the equation. Yet we are the ones that are holding the entire healthcare system up. We're holding the entire care economy up.
I believe is why we're not seeing, because if they start to see and acknowledge us, then they're going to have to start doing something to support us. And pay would be very, very nice.
Absolutely.
We're losing, most of us are losing our biggest financial years, our most productive financial years in our lives. So we're about to become a huge problem for Social Security, because I just gave up 6 years of my life taking care of my mom during the years where I can make the most money and take care of myself later. And this is, I'm not by any means an exception.
No.
So sometimes I think that's why they don't see us. And that's why I'm putting this film out there, which, by the way, it's been accepted for PBS distribution. November's National Family Caregiver Month. So a bunch of programmers all around the country are looking for content, and our film is one of their options.
Any PBS station?
Yes, any PBS station. So this is, our distribution deal is a little different, because it's not like a Masterpiece or a Nova. Those are PBS produced programs. So they, on Sunday night, all across the country, you're going to see the same programming. For these independent films, PBS loves to program those too, but they get slotted in between the regular programming. So yeah, and it's available for the next 3 years for any PBS station.
Really? For the next 3 years?
I know, crazy, right?
That's fantastic. I mean, it should be.
In 3 years, it'll be like, I've seen it. So over it.
No, I think it'll be, oh, good, I didn't miss that part.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing. We're also going to release a DVD and I believe a Blu-ray and VOD sales in November, probably mid-November. And I've also heard from people that where can I watch it again? Because I need to go back and remember this part. How did that happen, or what? Just maybe the attitudes are helping them when they're having bad days, to go back and look at caregivers who have also had bad days and can now kind of chuckle about some of that.
Yeah.
And
so to find out and to keep up to date, it's winewomenanddementia.com. You can sign up for the newsletter and all the information is there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, at Daughterhood, we're all about support and community. And this film shows the importance of both. And you did a wonderful job of capturing everything, and even our care partners. Like, I feel like we got to know everybody in this film. And I think it's a testament to your spirit, Kitty. And I appreciate you putting it all together and making it happen.
Thank you. I had an amazing cast, and I had an amazing post-production team who corrected everything I wanted to do wrong.
Perfect. That's all you need. Post-production, baby. Now that you've been through this and you traveled the country and met your people that and you continue to meet new caregivers with every screening. Yeah. What advice would you give to a dementia family caregiver?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, and this is after the fact, because not really understanding how important it was at the time. Sometimes thinking, I just don't have time for that. I don't have time to pull that together. It's community, you guys. If you are a caregiver right now and you're isolated, and that happens so easily, you have friends who have kind of dropped away, you have relatives who are giving you it's so hard to see my person this way. Find new people. I don't know how I got through this without you guys. I don't know how I got through this without my sister. We had some family members who were reluctant to be involved. And I just kind of blew through that, just being like, hey, mom and I have been driving around. We're in your neighborhood. Can we stop by? And most people were foolish enough to answer the phone so that they couldn't pretend like they couldn't answer the door. Find your people, man. Dementia cafes online. Because of the pandemic, so much stuff has gone online. Daughterhood has circles online. I think you guys have at least 2 or 3.
Yep, 2 or 3 a week, up to 10 or 12 a month sometimes.
There's so many other, even your local people, your local organizations that offer support groups. Not all of them have to be in person. If you can't get out, there's so many online options. Community, community, community. Find people to help, man. You need it, even if it's just talking.
A big thank you to Kitty Norton for being my guest today. For more information about Wine, Women, and Dementia, including how to purchase and see the film, visit winewomenanddementia.com. I hope you enjoyed our podcast today. Head over to daughterhood.org and click on the podcast section for show notes, including the full transcript and links to any resources and information from today's episode. You can find, subscribe, and review us on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Daughterhood. There you can discover our various circles and subscribe to our newsletter for updates. Feel free to message me on any of these sites and let me know what issues you may be facing and would like to hear more about. Or even if you just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you. Also, a very special thank you to Susan Rowe for our theme music, the instrumental version of her beautiful song, Mama's Eyes, from her album, Lessons in Love. I hope you found what you were looking for today. Information, inspiration, or even just a little company. This is Rosanne Corcoran. I hope you'll join me next time in Daughterhood.